In this episode of Bluebonnet News Headlines and Heartlines, I'm sitting down with Dwayne Stovall, a sixth-generation Texan, a businessman, and longtime political advocate, now seeking the Republican nomination for U.S. Congressional District 9. Dwayne has built his campaign around reducing federal power, restoring state authority, and confronting what he describes as an unaccountable federal bureaucracy. Today, he's going to have a conversation with us about his priorities in Washington, D.C., from holding monthly public meetings inside the district to pushing for constitutional changes. Dwayne, I want to welcome you to the show today.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
You're running to represent Congressional District 9. What is your personal relationship to the district, and how connected do you feel to the communities you want to serve?
Depending on how much time you have.
We got about 30 minutes.
I'll try to make it as short as possible. So I don't talk about this a lot. There's a few people that know me. We've been in Liberty County here about 30 years. But my lineage here, my family goes back about 125 plus years here in the district. My grandfather was born in Dayzetta. My father was also born in Dayzetta. I was born in Baytown. They are all Humble men who, those who are old enough to remember, Humble was the transition before Esso and then Exxon, which you have today. I was raised till I was 10 years old or so in Baytown. Spent 2 years in Alaska while my father worked on the pipeline, and then came back to Texas. As an adult, I worked at what was Atlantic Richfield in Pasadena, and it changed to Lyondale, and then Lyondale Citgo. I think it's Lyondale Purcell now. Spent about 14 years there. While I was there, I started a business, Diamond K Equipment Incorporated. Not long after I started that business, we moved to Liberty County, and I've had that business for right at 30 years now. We own a company called Liberty Testing. We do oil field service work. Third-party testing is what they call it. And we've been here this whole time. But during the course of that, everything about us is kind of inside this district. I've told people before, if they gave me a pencil and said, Dwayne, draw a congressional district that's friendly to you, I couldn't draw one better than this. My wife, early in her teaching career, started teaching or began her early years in LaPorte. I used to rodeo, and I bought my first competition trailer from Larry Allen at Allen's Western Wear, the late Larry Allen, the legend there in the Deer Park and Pasadena area. Spent all those years working in Pasadena, had a rent house in Pasadena. Have been here in Liberty County all these years, and we've been so deeply ingrained with youth and organizations here and with the Republican Party over the last number of years, and we'll get into that more later. But it's been the vast majority of my life is in this district the way it's drawn now. So my relationship to everybody's everyday lives is very, very close. Mm-hmm. So I experience the same things, have a commonality with the district that no other candidate running today has. And I have a particularly historical knowledge of how this office is supposed to operate. And I'm inclined to not let the people that are running now represent me or my neighbors.
So for voters who may not know you well, you already mentioned that, so I guess I'll skip ahead. You're running in a very competitive field. We talked about this with other candidates. You've got, I think, last count there was 5. Is that correct?
As of today, as of our taping of this, there's 5 filed candidates. There were probably 10 or 12 that were announced, but that'll all filter out by the 8th of December, and we'll know who's.
So aside from feeling like you know the district better than anyone, what other qualifications make you the best candidate over all these other candidates?
Well, just so there's nobody's asking a question, I'm 60 years old. And I started going to Texas legislature, the sessions, in 1999. That's way back when we still had a Democrat speaker. I think his name was Laney. And that's prior to us going through Strauss and then Bonnet and then all the way up to who we have today. And so I have a long history of being at the Capitol, understanding what they're working on. And it involved multiple things. Because I built bridges through Diamond K Equipment for a number of years, I was involved with trying to figure out how they fund it. That was kind of the catalyst, because when I started going to to the sessions and paying attention to how they funded everything, I realized how bad it was. And I started digging in. And then about the same time, around 2010 or so, I got on the school board here at Tarkington for the first time. And I was deeply invested in education. And I've spoken in front of numerous education committees in Austin, and I've spoken in front of the State Board of Education, and I was involved early on when we were battling against things like Common Core and those big positions that came up early on in this particular era. So I'm well vested in that. I've also been a delegate to the state conventions for the Republican Party numerous times, and I've actually authored a couple of the planks that are on the party platform. So my history or resume of working to support conservative bills and causes and principles is pretty well written. There's really no reaching and grabbing to figure out where I stand on everything. I've been a pretty big proponent of that, and you know that I've run a couple of races statewide for a U.S. Senate position that was, you can look at it and say that was just too large, and it was too large, but I'm more principled than I am smart. So I'll tend to do things that are not necessarily planning-wise the greatest thing to do, but the outcomes are okay. Like I'm here today, and I pulled, in the 2020 primary, I pulled a little over 12% of the primary on about $100,000, and John Cornyn spent, I think, $18 million in that cycle. Well, pulling almost 250,000 votes statewide was a pretty big deal, and it was a real humbling experience to see how many Texans are actually really wanting someone who's going to be honest and forthright with them. In this race today, part of the reason why I'm in the race is because we've got a California transplant who nobody really knows anything about, and she's got really no bona fides to say that she supports the conservative causes.
You mean Alex Miller?
Alex Miller. I don't have any ill will towards her. It's just she doesn't fit the bill for this district. She has nothing in common with us. She doesn't even live in the district. And I realize people are going to say, well, by law, you don't have to. Well, in Texas, it's been proven for decades that that's actually a very big point with Texans. And they'll spend lots of money bashing their challengers who don't live in the district because Texans don't like that. They want you to live where they live and share their life experiences. She doesn't have any of that. She's not even in Texas but just a few years. I asked somebody the other day, if you took all of the money that gets put behind her out of the equation, would she even be in the race? And no, she wouldn't be in the race. There would be no connection here. Speaking directly to Alex, I know the people that pulled her out of obscurity and put her in the race to run for Harris County judge. And although she lost to Lena Hidalgo, which is an interesting story all of its own because she didn't lose by that much. So she built all this political capital in Harris County over those years, raising so much money, and then lost. And then Lena Hidalgo came out somewhere around the end of September, early October, and said for sure she's not running again. And you would think that Alex would pivot back to that position and pick up all that political capital she gained and go for a position she barely lost. No one would run against her in the primary for that. And I talked to her myself personally. And she said she didn't see a pathway to victory, which made no sense to me whatsoever. But she did tell me that she thought that she'd get more bang for her buck with the voters in an open seat here in CD9 where she doesn't even live and doesn't share any life experience with. So to my mind, she just thinks she's going to buy a seat.
So what made you decide to run for Congressional District 9 and not Texas Senator?
The race for Texas Senate has got, or U.S. Senate, has got Ken Paxton running and Wesley Hunt. And
Well, I meant for the Texas Congressional District where Nichols, that seat. Why did you not run for that one and you decided to run for Congressional District?
Well, because this one is closer to me and my neighbors than any other one.
Okay.
If we would have stayed in the same position, if they hadn't moved us out and we were still under Brian Babbitt is a good man. Do I have questions about some of the things he does? Sure. You're going to have that about everybody that's in office. But I like him generally. And it wasn't like I was opposed to him representing me. I'm opposed to having people like Briscoe Cain and Alex Miller represent us. I'm opposed to that. You've heard what I've said about Alex. I've known Briscoe Cain for almost 15 years, or right at 15 years. I met him when he was not long out of law school or still in law school. And like I said, I've been going to sessions for many, many years. So when you hear someone on the stump campaigning and then you vote for them, you usually leave them to their word and they disappear and go to Austin. I'm different. I get to see what you do when you're in Austin. So Briscoe, and I did an interview on Fox where I talked about the fact that he's got an authenticity problem. He's fake. And I can't stress that enough. You can't get on a stump and put on your new cowboy boots and your new cowboy hat and say that you are going to work with Donald Trump to fight against the Democrats' woke agenda, and then be at the same time be at the State House in Texas defending Democrats holding positions of authority and power as chairman of committees. And he's done that, and he's on tape doing that. So you can't claim you're going against the woke agenda and then support and defend the same folks that want to murder babies in the womb and mutilate children. So for me, when I saw that he announced, that was kind of a catalyst. And when I talked to Alex and she told me she thought she'd get more bang for her buck with the voters, that absolutely iced it for me. So I knew I was going to run for this
So that's
position.
why you ran. Okay.
Sure.
So one of your central promises is to hold monthly in-person meetings somewhere in your district if you are elected.
Absolutely.
So why do you believe this is necessary, and how will you ensure that commitment once you're busy with Washington, D.C.?
Oh, you can make it happen. It's how you manage your time. I know that in my lifetime, the one thing that bothers me more than anything else, and I'm sure if you ask anybody else, and I don't care what party you're in, if you ask anyone who's sitting here living in Texas right now, do you think you're represented and you're heard? 99% of people are going to say no way. They're just not, because we hire, and I use hire because you're not electing people as royalty. You're hiring people to represent you. You hire them, and in most cases, they disappear 1,500 miles to your east, and you never see them again until they need another vote. My goal is to do what I've wanted to see all of my adult life, and that is I want to see a district represented as closely as possible to real time. And I'd have a meeting every single month, and we discuss what happened the prior 30 days and what I perceive could be happening in the next 30 days, and have an open discussion where questions can be asked and answered, and it's going to be asked and answered by me, if at all possible. So,
And you just have it in different parts of the district?
well, that's the unique thing about this district. You can get from one end to the other of it in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So if you held one on the south end and one on the north end,
It's not like it's multiple, it's just two counties.
you could have a central one, and if people really want to come, they're going to drive 25 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
But yes, you could spread it out, use some of the better areas where you can meet, make it comfortable for everybody. But there's no reason that people lose contact with their representative when they leave here. And I've never understood that. It just makes people go to the voting polls and you elect someone, and then that's it. Poof, they're gone.
You said they disappeared to D.C.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't know, and the kicker to that is we don't know who they break bread with. We don't know who takes them to lunch, and we don't know who influences them, but we're pretty sure we're not it. We don't do the influencing, so.
You've spoken about the deep state, saying that many in the federal workforce operate without accountability. So what does erasing the deep state look like in practical legislative terms?
There's so many bureaucratic placements in D.C. that are unseen, that manage our daily lives that we don't recognize. And I think it was on display the last 2 years of Biden's presidency, because it was basically on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't
the
a
auto
president.
pen.
Oh, yeah. So you see it's functioning without a POTUS. It's functioning. And you have one that's basically incapacitated, and they're still functioning day to day and making decisions and spending money.
But who's making the decisions?
Who's doing it? And I think everybody understands that there are influences in D.C. that are beyond our control. And at some point, and I think it's dangerous to get into that discussion. I think that's been proven through the years too. But it has to happen. Somebody's got to start having that discussion. I think Donald Trump started that discussion. And I don't know where that's all at. I do know that there's a certain risk involved with being in public office with the federal government these days, where you are, if you're pushing back against the old control mechanisms. But, you know, it's it's a cesspool there, and we all know that. So what are you going to do?
Drain the swamp?
Right.
Okay, so for people who don't understand the deep state, can you just in a nutshell explain what the deep state is? Because it's a term that's been thrown around a lot.
Well, from my understanding and my watching and study of this, there are entities unrelated to our federal government, unrelated to our representative form of government, who are influencing those in office and policy in ways that we don't see, we don't participate in, and have nothing to do with the will of the people.
Such as political action committees?
Oh, PACs. PACs they're kind of an interesting thing all their own because they were created by Congress. And there are PACs such as a leadership PAC. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So a leadership PAC is only for congressmen. And the interesting thing about those are if you're in Congress and you have a leadership PAC and you raise money for your PAC, it can literally follow you when you leave Congress. You can take it with you. So there's people that have these leadership PACs and they fill it with millions of dollars of donations. And then when they leave Congress, it's like a nest egg. And all they have to do is prove that they used it to stay in contact with their own constituents. It's the craziest thing you ever saw.
It's corrupt.
It's absolutely corrupt. But I'll put it to you this way. Building bridges, I learned a lot. We did an emergency bridge project for Jefferson County a number of years ago. And when I went in, Don Mayo was the area engineer over there, the county engineer. Great guy. One day he and I were having coffee and there was nobody else in the office, and I asked him just out of the blue, because it's my personality, I said, so who really funds this grant, you know? And he goes, well, I'm not really sure. It's run by the FEMA stuff and all that. And he said, let's look. So we got the contract out, flipped back to the details on where the funding was. And it was not only not funded through FEMA, it was funded through HUD, which had nothing to do with building bridges. And the HUD money came from NGOs. It was a bunch of non-governmental agencies. This is money that's completely off the budget, off the books. Like you and I would never know it. And it comes into your state through NGOs, through these grants. And they have to agree to certain covenants with these groups that do these grants. So they might be building like a completely unnecessary housing for a particular demographic or something like that they agree to do over the course of so many years. Well, the state doesn't have anything to do with that, and legislatures don't even know the money's there. Nobody in Austin even knows these types of grants are being parlayed in Texas. And that was one of my first upfront understandings of how this money moves around, and it's completely outside of our knowledge. And it's used to manipulate the government and to tie everybody up. So it's, like I said, it's a cesspool.
So on the federal level, I guess that's why it's important for Doge to continue doing its
Although
work.
the Doge work that was done through Elon's people was fantastic, but I think everybody got a first-hand taste of that too, because they broke out and started finding so many really nefarious uses of our dollars and money going to people that should not have gotten it, and money going to people that don't even exist. And what happened? They put forward a list of suggestions to the Congress when this last CR started coming through with budget talks. And what did they take up? None of it.
Why not?
Zero. You got me. I don't know where the money's going, who's on the take for what, or why the behavior is the way it is in Congress, but I do know that what they brought forward was legitimate. And every single member of Congress campaigns on their notes. And then when it came time for them to fulfill what the people, meaning all us Texans and everybody else in every other state, were wanting, was them to clean up all this ridiculous spending and debt we're incurring over all this. They did nothing.
How do you go to Washington and not get absorbed into the culture?
You come back every month.
Okay. Stay grounded.
I'm absolutely positive. If you disconnect yourself from your district, you will follow suit with the people that are around.
You'll become the swamp?
Shoot, yeah. I don't think you can miss it. There's too many good people that go. And I'll tell you something else. This has more to do with understanding the office. The people that are running for this office, and there'll be numerous people, not just the two that are chosen to pick out Alex or Briscoe or one of these. There'll be others. And everybody tends to do this. They tend to get up and tell you that, I've prayed about it, and the Lord's led me this way, and I have a heart to serve, and those are kind of blanket statements. And I used to listen to that and think I applaud that, and people will applaud that. Well, I'm at an age now, and I've got an understanding of the office now to a point where that's not enough. If you get up and say, me and my wife prayed about it, and I'm just leaning towards this. I'm ready to serve. Okay, great. What does that even mean? What do you know about the office?
Because they may be pursuing selfish desires?
No, it's because they go and they don't know what they're doing, and when they get there, the first person they get, everybody gets, is a legislative counsel. Mm. So they get legislative counsel, and it's going to be an attorney who's probably been through 3 or 4 or 5 or more other incumbents, and they've worked in all different offices, and they're just case method trained attorneys, which, by the way, both the other major candidates are case method trained attorneys. So when you get there, you take somebody that doesn't understand the limitations of the office, it doesn't understand its authorities, don't understand the powers that it has and what it can do and what it can't do, and they go there with this open brain of, I'm just going to serve. And when they get there, they get introduced to their legislative counsel. Their legislative counsel leads them around the campus and says, this is where your office is, and this is where we meet, and these are the conference rooms, and this is the main gallery, and this is where we eat lunch. And they develop a rapport with them, and then one day they're sitting at lunch with this attorney that they've developed a rapport with, and they bring up something maybe their district really wants to do. And they say, we really like to, I want to do something to change this. And they slide it across the table on a notepad, and their counsel looks at it, and he shakes his head yes, and he goes, I'm right there with you. I fully understand that. But here's the thing. The Supreme Court would never go along with that. Well, this is really something that's important in my district. Well, I'll tell you what. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to work with other people in our office, and work with you, and we're going to craft legislation that will touch this subject and will probably pass the muster with the Supreme Court. And we'll creep it that direction. So what happens? You get somebody that maybe was a rancher in rural Texas who everybody trusts and is a good Christian man, and this is the guy we want, and we elect him, and he goes there, and he's got a servant's heart, but he has no idea what he's doing. And he gets there, and he gets guidance from his attorney, and he comes back 3 months later or 6 months later, and they've got him at a town hall meeting, and they say, okay, how's it going? And all of a sudden, this man who had a bright light in his eye and would give his shirt off his back to anybody when he left, now is furrowing his brow and twiddling his thumbs. He's got his hands together, and he's saying, it's just harder than you think. It's just harder. No, it's not harder than you think. He doesn't understand the office, and he doesn't understand who controls what. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard to especially get people who've been raised in public education over the last 3 generations or 4 generations to understand. It's not a co-equal branch of government. There's not 3 co-equal branches. There's literally one powerful branch, and it's the legislative branch. And out of the 2 chambers in that legislative branch, one is more powerful than the other, and it's the House of Representatives. They have most of the power in the government. And one of those powers is they're the ones that control the judges. So people... And I hate to do this because it sounds like I'm sending everybody into school or something, but if you read Article 3, everybody, even students will tell you today, Article 1 was written for the legislative branch, Article 2 was written for the executive branch, and Article 3 was written for the judicial branch. This is true, except that Article 3 wasn't written to the judges, it was written to the Congress. So if you read it in that context, you realize real quick, there's literally 10 types of cases the Supreme Court can be involved in. That's it. Only 3 do they have original jurisdiction over. But every other type of case listed, the Congress makes the rules and regs for whether they participate in it or not. Their standing is controlled by the Congress. So every time you hear them talk about what the Supreme Court said, as a congressman, you should go, that really doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. Okay. They shouldn't be involved in nearly as much as what they are. But back to your original statement here, you go there understanding the mechanics and the authorities and its limitations, and you can actually move the needle. If you go there with just a servant's heart because you feel like it's your time, you're not doing us any good at all. Just stay at home.
So speaking of the Constitution, you are proposing to amend Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution to require that congressional candidates be natural-born citizens with 2 natural-born citizen parents. Why is this a priority?
I think you can see that now. You can look at the Somalian representation coming out of Michigan real fast. Omar in the Congress right now is openly opposed to America, supporting her homeland, and I think that's indicative of where you go when you don't protect the loyalties that are going into your governmental system. And you're right on both cases, but it's 2 different things. I want to amend the Constitution to change the language of requirements to hold a position in the House, to go away from 7 years a citizen, to be the same requirement as it is to be a president, which is to be natural born. But I also want to explicitly
expand it a little bit?
I want to explicitly detail what natural born means now, right now. And it means the same thing as it did then, but it's been manipulated by judges, by the way. Natural born today needs to mean naturally born here to 2 citizens of the United States.
So not like an anchor baby type situation.
You need to have 2 naturally born parents. And the whole purpose of that is not racial, it's not cultural, it has everything to do with misplaced loyalties. If you have a U.S. senator who is voting on treaties with Italy
Or Cuba. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And your father or mother is a immigrant from Italy or Cuba, mm-hmm. and this is going to favor the U.S., but maybe not favor so much that land, you will not be enticed or inclined to go against it if you have loyalties that are pure to the USA.
Yeah.
And we have a plethora of issues of people who have disloyalties to the USA that, in my book, if you revoke their visas and deported them, we'd be better off.
Okay, so critics argue that excluding law-abiding Americans who have against that. So how would you respond to the critics who are against your proposal?
How would you be excluding law-abiding citizens? That would be my first question to them.
Okay.
And the idea is, if people are hypersensitive about illegal immigration, then don't come here. Don't come here illegally anyway.
Yeah.
Immigration's a pathway, and everybody has an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
But there's a right way and a wrong way, and I think we've proven over the last at least 30 to 40 years that illegal immigration that's allowed at the same time that you allow access to taxpayer-funded programs, the impact has been so bad and it's so culturally destructive that it's working at the fabric of the USA. And I think if we don't start making structural changes to the way we deal with it now, and it's going to hurt some feelings, it's going to be hard, but if we don't do it now, you could see a situation in which this entire USA implodes culturally. And
do you see a time where Sharia law would be imposed if we don't do something about?
Well, I think it's imposed in different areas around the states already, locally. There's communities that live by it. And I think that much of that could be dealt with through the visa system and the immigration system if you managed it correctly. Because there's a lot of people that don't need to be here. And people say, we're the melting pot. No, we're a cesspool. And that's not being helped by allowing basically known terrorists to come in here, or people who come here from countries that want to do us harm. I mean, look at what the government's done just in our lifetimes. We have grown accustomed to, maybe we don't like it anymore, but we've grown accustomed to the notion that this federal government will literally take the money out of our pockets, pay the travel fees of refugees, air quotes refugees, from foreign countries that want to do harm to us, from tribes and groups of people that want to do harm to us, and they're predominantly men, by the way.
Fighting age.
And they bring them here and force them into our states against the will of the citizens of these states. And they do it here in Texas too. So we haven't had and this is going off on a different tangent, but we haven't had leadership in Texas that would stop that. We've just gone along with it because it's the federal government.
Well, do you think that Abbott's doing something to?
No, I don't think Abbott did anything to stop it.
Okay. So you're calling for a 10-year moratorium on immigration and work visas. So what led you to that position, and what outcomes do you expect?
It's the same thing. It's kind of like anybody that knows me knows I've been in construction and oil field and heavy haul trucking and aggregate trucking for a number of years. That one industry is just one example of what we're dealing with. Everybody, if you're on social media today, you should have seen some kind of postings or a lot of more activity having to do with non-domiciled drivers, CDL drivers, who are running around here, can't read English, can't speak English. They've got a CDL in their pocket because they got it off of some kind of immigration form that they were allowed to use through the Biden years. We've got illegal aliens who are getting CDLs. In my instance, for the past 30 years, if I did a project where I needed more trucks than we had, I might call a broker out of Houston and get 20 or 30 or more tandem dump trucks. Well, I can bet you 75% of them are going to be illegal at every call. So that's just one industry.
You see that as a safety risk or as an insurance risk?
Well, it's all of it. It affects the price. It affects market pricing. It's completely unlevel playing field. Mm-hmm. It affects insurance rates in every industry you're in, no matter what you're dealing with. And ultimately, it makes things less safe for us on the traveling roadway. Everybody became lit up by it, by the guy in Florida that made the U-turn on the interstate and killed the family. Mm-hmm. This has been going on for decades, and it's just now really drawing the attention of it. The stops that are being made in Oklahoma now, they've done some screenings where they've run a few hours. They did one a month ago in Oklahoma on 40 coming out of the Panhandle in Texas, and I think in just a few hours they stopped 130 plus drivers who couldn't speak English and were non-domiciled.
So how do they understand the street?
How do they read the signs?
Yeah.
How do they know what they're talking about? Yeah. So all of this...
And don't they have to keep up with logs and do all that stuff like everyone else has to?
They're supposed to, but the companies that hire these guys need to be held accountable too.
That's the problem, yeah.
So it's a large scheme situation problem, but immigration is key to so many other aspects, whether it be education or healthcare or any of that. It has such a negative impact on it. I mean, take a look at Cleveland ISD.
Would it affect the cost of goods, or would it if you remove them from truck driving?
I think if you allow the market to settle out, you get a true pricing.
Okay.
But it's either or. You're either getting the market is either setting a good price for whatever products it is they're moving, or the owner operators are getting hit with higher insurance claims because they're not sure who's on the road. You got so many fly-by-night companies that are hiring illegals, and they've already got motor vehicle, and we're kind of sticking to the driver situation here. They've already got motor vehicle registrations in multiple names. So as soon as one gets tagged, they just pull the name off, stick another name on it, keep hauling the same routes with the same customers. At some point, the manufacturers, customers, driver companies, the transport companies are going to have to be brought to the table, and this is going to have to shut down completely. You can't allow these people on the road, and you can't allow the people that hire them to operate.
And our lawful truck drivers, they're being cut out of work.
Oh, they're losing their trucks.
Yeah.
I know them. I know a bunch of them.
I have a cousin that's a truck driver, and it's a hard business to be in.
It's terrible. But look at the backlog, or follow that issue into not only economics, but culturally what it does to us. Because it's really dividing the country, and it's creating all these schisms all over the place between people who come from cultures that don't align with the West. And it's becoming more and more apparent every single day. The economics of it, you can't dispute that. If you took all the illegal aliens out of the education process in Texas, our budget would change drastically. We spend in excess of $1.5 billion to $2 billion a year right here, just in the state of Texas, dealing with illegal aliens.
Wouldn't there also be a number of teachers out of work, though? Or would it just reduce the number of students per teacher to where it's a higher quality?
I don't know how the numbers would work out. I do know that as far as education goes, the state is so impaired with qualified, certified teachers filling the classrooms. We're so short everywhere. And the interesting thing on that market is there's less and less teachers being educated and more openings being created.
Yeah.
So
Hard
the
to keep
demand
up.
and supply is way off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go into about judicial overreach, because I know that that's something that you're interested in. You've argued that Congress is the most powerful branch and that the House should assert its authority under Article 2. What specific action should Congress take to rein in what you consider judicial overreach?
Well, it's simple, and it really is simple. So the Congress passes a law, the Senate agrees with it, and they put it into play for the president to sign. He signs it in agreement. That puts him responsible for executing, being the executive. Mm-hmm. He's there to execute the will of the people out of the House that becomes law. And during his execution of his responsibility, he can write, what are the things he writes that, you know what I'm talking about, when the president writes a order, executive order.
Yeah.
He can write executive order to help execute that.
And Trump has done many of them.
And he's done many of them. Well, most of them in the modern age, especially in the 20th century coming forward, they would use them as kind of their own catalyst, their own weapons. But they're supposed to be used to help execute the laws in hand and to manage the agencies. So when he writes a executive order that in a way that he wants to manage a particular issue or agency, there's no federal judge who can come out and say, no, you can't do that. There's no federal judge who can do that. Mm-hmm. But we have an entire Congress who has the authority right there in black and white to tell that federal judge to sit down and be quiet.
Well, we got federal judges trying to legislate from the bench.
Well, sure they do.
They're trying to mess with Trump with his immigration
policies. It kind of goes back to the original topic you and I were talking about, where you don't understand the office. So you got an entire Congress that's run by attorneys. I don't care if you've got somebody in there who's a doctor or a lawyer, or a doctor or a farmer, or it wouldn't matter who it is. If they don't understand that their legal counsel is not really there representing the Congress, they're there representing law. So you got two different mindsets here when you got me in there. I live by the origins of the Constitution as it was written and amended and ratified by the states. Lawyers tend to, and I've run across a few originalist lawyers, very, very few though. Most lawyers are case method trained lawyers, so they see the Constitution as just kind of this piece of paper. They live by the thing that we're forced to live under, which is a body of case rulings. So stare decisis, or the idea that whatever has come before, they're going to follow now. Well, you can't live like that, because any judge, any progressive, leftist, Marxist judge who creates a ruling that's just evil spawns more evil, terrible rulings, because you keep relying on case rulings as your basis. You can't do that. You got to have somebody in office who's going to go back to the origins of the Constitution and the limits of the law and the authorities of the law and base every discussion that they have on that. When you have judges who are making rulings and telling the executive branch they can't execute the will of the people, you need a Congress who's going to smack them around and tell them this is not how it works, and if you keep acting like this, we're going to get you out of office.
Yeah, because the people who voted for Trump wanted a certain number of things to happen. And he keeps having judges that are stepping in and saying, you can't do that.
And I'm going to give you, because there will be people who listen to this who go, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm going to give your listeners a quick example, and they can go check it out themselves.
Okay.
So anybody wants to know when we went off the rails as a constitutional republic, it happened 4 years after we implemented the Constitution. It's exactly 4 years. There was a case called Chisholm v. Georgia. It was an individual in North Carolina, I believe, that sued the state of Georgia over an estate situation. It was an estate situation. Well, one of the types of cases that the federal judiciary can get involved in is types of cases in which a state shall be a party, except that it never meant under these circumstances. And if you went all the way back to the beginning, you get the first 10 amendments, which we call the Bill of Rights, right? Mm-hmm. And you had a Supreme Court that was fresh, didn't have anything to do, decided it would get involved in this private lawsuit. And they ruled on it. Well, no one at that time who signed off on the Constitution or debated the Bill of Rights or that thought that it meant anything other than what it originally meant. And they knew that they were overreaching, getting into this private lawsuit. So what did that Congress do? They told that Supreme Court to shut up and sit down, and they wrote the 11th Amendment. So if you read the 11th Amendment, it completely clarifies what cases in which a state shall be a party means and what the federal judiciary can do and can't do. So, yeah, the Congress has lost its way because it's run basically by attorneys, and most of them just want to be judges.
Okay, so this gets into the fun part. I've got one more question, and then we're going to go into the rapid fire questions because those are the ones that I like too.
Okay.
So many voters support strong federal government in disaster response, social programs, and national security. How do you persuade them that shifting power back to the states is the right direction?
That's not really that hard when you break it down. If you tell people who should make the decisions for you, should it be people closest to you or furthest away from you? They kind of get that. Our state we've got plenty of talent here. We've got plenty of resources here. Texans
it's very diverse.
It's very diverse. Texans can take care of Texans. There's 33 million people here at last count. That's 11 times more people than were in all 13 states combined when they made the USA. That's as many people that were here during the entire Civil War for the entire United States. We've got a lot. And there's really no reason for us to call on a national overlord to come in and help us out. The most interesting thing of that is that when we do get federal assistance, a lot of times they hinder us helping ourselves.
And it's not adequate.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very much a Texans.
Yeah.
Putting Texas first is kind of my thing.
Okay. So we're going to go into the rapid fire.
Oh.
These are where you answer in just a short 1, 2 word, 3 word.
Try.
Okay. 1 word to describe Washington, D.C. right now.
Oh, I've said it. Cesspool.
Term limits for Congress, yes or no?
Yes.
First federal agency you would cut or shrink?
Department of Education.
10-year immigration moratorium, negotiable or non-negotiable?
Well, I think to me it's non-negotiable, but when you get there, you got 434 other
It will have to be
dealing with.
negotiated there. Should English be the official national language?
Absolutely.
Most overrated federal program?
Most overrated federal program? Probably HUD.
Biggest threat to American sovereignty?
Not to send everybody down a rat hole. I'm thinking the U.S. government itself, but I would say our immigration policy is it.
National debt or border security? What is a bigger emergency?
Those are very, very similar. The border security is the immediate. National debt, there are people that don't even understand what that does to us, and that's an argument that's going to happen. I think Texans need to grab a hold of the border themselves too. I also think that's something that a governor worth of salt would grab a hold of this border. It's a thing. You go back to constitutional discussions. If an executive of a state asks for assistance for a particular thing, especially like securing the border and the safety and property rights of the citizens, and the federal government proves for 40 years it's not interested in helping you, then you've depleted all your offerings. You got to do it yourself. And then you just tell them if they want to sue, they can go to the federal courts by themselves.
Should states be able to nullify federal regulations?
They can already.
Okay. So 1 federal law you would repeal immediately.
Oh, good Lord. 1?
You get 1.
I get 1 federal law.
For rapid fire.
Income tax.
1 issue your opponents don't want to talk about, but you will.
1 issue my opponents don't want to talk about. Who's conservative? Who's actually bringing bona fides? Who's a conservative? I don't know anybody who's got more. I know a lot of people who talk about it, but they don't bring anything to the table. Briscoe plays the I'm on every poll, every list, right? But that's the thing. I've been going to Austin so long, I understand how the lists work. And, I'm the most conservative in this ranking, But if you take the particular, it might be based on 5 votes. So if you play your cards right with the particular votes, You can still go to the floor and demand that Democrats be made chairman of committees and still get your high conservative ranking. It just makes you disingenuous.
So did you enjoy the questions today?
I have. I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Well, this wraps up our conversation with Dwayne Stovall. Thank you for joining me today, Dwayne.
You're very welcome. I appreciate it.
To hear more conversations with candidates and leaders that are shaping our region, follow Bluebonnet News for more headlines and heartlines. This is Vanessa Brazier, owner and publisher of Bluebonnet News of Texas. Thank you for joining me today, and we will see you next time.